In the previous video, we discussed various resources that you have as a student or an entry-level employee or an advanced level employee at any company across the United States. And this is just by going to basically a few websites and taking a look at the resource or reference material that's listed. So in our previous video, we ended up with NIOSH, NIOSH Pocket Guide to Chemical Hazards. And I told you that there's going to be a few more that we do need to talk about, that we need to cover, and that we need to introduce to you. So the next one is going to be the National Library of Medicine. So the National Library of Medicine. And you can kind of already assume that this is pretty much used in a pharmaceutical environment. I mean, if we're talking about pharmaceuticals and drugs and manufacturing drugs, and if this is the National Library of Medicine, then this pretty much goes hand in hand, right? So there's a database called TOXNET, T-O-X-N-E-T, TOXNET. And it's basically biomedical references. So if we do ingest a drug, what would happen? What are the bad things? What are the good things? What are the side effects? And it's also chemistry reference as well. So you can find things on general reagents that you might be using in a laboratory and so forth. So to go to this website or to visit this resource, this is the TOXNET website here. And let me just kind of make it fit the screen for just a second. Okay, so up here at the top is the website. It's toxnet.nlm.nih.gov. And when you go to this website, the National Library of Medicine will pop up, and TOXNET will show up here at the very top. Toxicology Data Network. That's basically what that represents. Notice here on the home page, you're going to see databases. And it says most visited by TOXNET users. And there's a couple of databases that are listed here. And then as you go through, there's different databases that you've got access to. But right up here at the top, Hazardous Substances Data Bank, peer-reviewed toxicology data for over 5,000 hazardous chemicals. The TOXLine database, 4 million references to literature on biochemical, pharmacological, physiological, and toxicological effects of drugs and other chemicals. And then here we've got ChemID Plus, a directory of over 400,000 chemicals with names, synonyms, and structures. So there's quite a bit that you could utilize off of the website. And if you just click the hazardous substance database, the very first one, here it is. It tells you a little bit about it. And I'm just going to type in a chemical that we might use in a laboratory. So I'm going to type in benzene and I'm going to hit search. And here you're going to see everything that's got benzene or a benzene related molecule in the database. So here I find the following is the primary record for the chemical that I typed in. And then here we've got almost 2,000 more records that contain the chemical name that I typed in. So remember we said that compounds can go by more than one name. And if benzene shows up in the name at all, then all of these choices are going to be listed in the database for you. So let's say that I just really want benzene. That's all that I want. So I'm going to click it. The database will begin to load up. Over here to the side, you're going to see the breakdown of the information that's there. And you'll see full records, overviews, human health effects, emergency medical treatment, toxicity studies in animals. If you eat it or drink it, how does your body break it down? So that's the metabolism studies or pharmacokinetics. Pharmacology, environmental fate, environmental standards and regulations, physical properties, chemical properties, how should I handle it? What if I expose myself to it? any type of manufacturing information, lab methods, anything that ever want to know about this compound is going to show up over here to the left. This is kind of the main home screen with benzene. As we clicked the name, this is the very first screen that shows up, and you can see the overview section begins here. So there's the chemical structure. There's the CAS number up here at the top. It tells me when it was last reviewed by someone or made changes by someone. And as I scroll down, I can actually read certain parts of text that could be in reference or literature sources that would be located in a library or in a laboratory somewhere. Notice it says toxicity studies. Notice that this section, compared to a normal SDS, is much more full-bodied. Again, these are written by people working in the field. It gives me information that I probably cannot find in an SDS. If I want to go more in depth with the chemistry part, then this TOXNET database will typically allow me to do that versus a traditional general SDS form or SDS document. As I go through, it lists all of the health hazards that are associated with this particular compound. It will do that with all of them. And you're going to see very similar sections that an SDS would have. But again, all of these are more full-bodied, and you can kind of go through here and already notice there's more words just showing up on your screen than what you would find in one of those safety data sheets. Okay? So that's the purpose of the TOXNET. It's a very powerful database that you could use. It's free. Notice I didn't have to put in a username or password that I can have at my fingertips at any point in time. So the next resource that I would like to introduce you to is another resource from CTC. CTC, again, is Center for Disease Control, and these are going to focus on what we call pocket cards. These pocket cards or safety cards will provide you some quick, easy-to-read information about many of the chemicals that will be used in a laboratory. So the proper kind of name for this is International Chemical Safety Cards. And it is another online resource that you could use for free. And it's very similar to an MSDS or an SDS. You know, compared to TOXNET that we just saw, these safety cards are basically a quick read. It leaves out all the verbiage. It just really gives you kind of safety parameters about the chemicals or compounds that you're using, and that's about it. So if you're looking for something more detailed, this might not be the place to go to, but if you're just looking for a general overview of safety, then this is a great free resource that you have other than an MSDS or an SDS. Okay? So up here at the top is going to be the website that you need to type in. You could probably do a Google search that just basically says International Chemical Safety Cards, and the very first link will show up. That's the one that you'll click on. Or if you want the direct website, it's cdc.gov/NIOSH/IPCS. Then hit enter, and it should automatically take you to this website. Just to kind of show you the information that will be located here, if I scroll down to the page, under the indexes, there's going to be a chemical name section. That's probably the easiest way to find something that you're after, unless you have the CAS number. And let's say I'm looking for benzene again. We use that in the TOXNET, and we can compare it here. So I'm going to scroll down until I get to benzene. It is listed. Right there it is. It gives me some information over here to the right-hand side. Notice this very first column is the CAS number. All right. So if I didn't know it, now I do. I can record that number down. Over here to the left is a number or a registry number. I'm going to click that number, and information about benzene will show up. Up here at the top, you'll find different names, the structures, molecular masses, the CAS numbers that you might need to know, and any kind of pictogram that might be important with the respective numbers that show down below. Notice how this is set up. It's really about hazards here. It's not as general as an SDS is concerned as far as safety goes. But notice it breaks it down and it says fires and explosions, exposure levels, but types of hazards, fire, it's highly flammable. Do not use it around open flames or sparks or smoking. First aid and firefighting, powder, AFFF, foam, and carbon dioxide. That's basically giving you an idea of if a fire gets started using this compound benzene, this is the best way to put it out. As far as exposures go, we now know exposures, the different types of or different ways that we can expose ourselves to chemicals. All of those are broken down. Notice if you inhale it, you can get dizzy, you can get drowsy, headaches, nausea, shortness of breath, convulsions, you can go unconscious. It says avoid all contact, right? So ventilation is going to be required, local exhaust, breathing protection. That could include a fume hood. Make sure that you get fresh air, make sure you get rest, refer for medical attention if needed. So very short, very brief, great for first aid responders, great for physicians if they're unfamiliar with the chemical that you've used. But you can automatically see how easy this is to read and get the data and statistics that you automatically need when you look these type of things up, especially if time is important. It tells me what to do in case of a spill. It tells me how to store it. It tells me how the package and labeling should look. And then if I scroll on down, it gives me important data here. That's what that says over here to the left-hand side. And these are just, kind of takeaway messages. What happens if, or, if I'm exposed, or if I do breathe it in, what are the major things that I need to watch out for when using this chemical? So physical dangers, the vapor's heavier than air and it can travel along the ground. Distant ignition is possible. As a result of flow, agitation, etc., electrostatic charges can be generated. Inhalation risk, a harmful contamination of the air can be reached very quickly on evaporation of the substance. Notice it doesn't give me any data. I don't need it. Again, if time is important, I don't need any of that crap, right? I just need to figure out what I need to do or how I need to stay away from it. And that's the purpose of the safety cards, okay? Physical properties are also listed. These are pretty much kind of set in stone, so whenever they can put them in, they're going to put them in and make them available. Environmental data, the substance is very toxic to aquatic organisms. Notice this pictogram right here. This is the same pictogram that we've seen before when we've talked about labeling. Notes, use of alcoholic beverages enhance the harmful effect. Depending on the degree of exposure, periodic medical examination is indicated. So don't drink while you're on the job. That's basically what that tells me. The odor warning when the exposure limit value is exceeded is insufficient. Card has been partly updated October 2004. See the section Occupational Exposure Limits, EU Classification, and Emergency Response. So they at least tell you when it was updated. They give you kind of an update on what's going on, what kind of changes were made, and how outdated this card might actually be. Notice, though, down here at the bottom, it says important legal notice. That means that people are not going to be held reliable for the information that's in this document. So if something has changed and it doesn't work out the right way, it's not their fault. So that's another resource that you have, another database that you can use to look up actual, reliable, truthful, for the most part, chemical, physical, and chemical properties. All right. Now let's talk about the next resource. This is going to be the NFPA standards. Now I'm going to put in parentheses here online version because there is a printed version as well. But we're going to visit the website and we're going to see what we can and cannot do with it. So here's the resource. Up at the top is a pretty long website. Again, you can probably Google this and get to it much quicker that way. But the NFPA.org/codes and standards /all codes and standards /list of codes and standards. All right. So that's the website that we're on right now. Again, you can type in NFPA codes and standards, and it will be a direct link, probably directing you to this website. So the NFPA, we said, was called the National Fire Protection Association. We've talked about some of their labeling requirements already. We said that they are a little bit different than the GHS labeling requirements, and that's okay. But these were really codes and pictograms for firefighters. In case the laboratory catches on fire or these chemicals get exposed to flame, what are the things that we need to watch out for as far as flammability goes, health hazards go, oxidizers go, any special codes? Those are the types of things that we're looking at. So this database is basically just a list of the codes and standards that they use. So over here to the left-hand side, you will find the code and standard number. And then to the right-hand column, you're going to see the name that refers back to that code. So for instance, the very first one, NFPA 1, is a fire code, right? And if you click NFPA 1, that will direct you to a web page that will be devoted to that particular fire code or standard that they are using. So NFPA 1 fire code advances the fire and life safety for the public and first responders, as well as property protection by providing a comprehensive, integrated approach to fire code regulation and hazard management. It addresses all the bases with extracts from and references to more than 130 NFPA codes and standards, including such industry benchmarks as the following. All right. So that's NFPA 1. And if you scroll on down, you'll get some more information about that particular code or about that particular regulation. These things can get very detailed. They can become very legal. They can reference to many different things that you have no clue of what they're referencing to, and that's okay. But the thing that I want to say here is that very rarely do we have to go to the NFPA standards. Right? Again, these are for firefighters. These are for people that go into the laboratory and want to know more about the chemicals or what you have inventory-wise and how it would behave with an open flame or fire if it sets part in the room. So these are not really used with laboratory personnel, but if they begin to talk the lingo or if you begin to see a NFPA code or standard that's referenced in maybe an SDS or on another database, then now you know where to find those. This is going to be the source where you'll go to. You can look up those standards or codes, see what they're all about, see if you're in line with those or if you know basically what they're talking about. Okay? So I just now noticed the actual record button was not pushed, and I don't really know how much of information that was left out while I was talking to myself apparently, but I was telling you the story of the Merck Index and how Merck Pharmaceutical Company created this reference book for their employees in the laboratory, and it was a very streamlined, quick way for their employees to look up information before the age of cell phones and the internet, right? So this reference book became important and word got out and many people wanted a copy of it. So Merck began to sell the Merck Index. And that's what you're seeing on the screen right now. So it is a physical copy. We have a couple of these in our laboratory. So if you want to see an actual copy of the Merck Index, we have them. You're more than welcome to open them up, take a look through them, and you will use them a couple of times throughout your time in the program. But you can also purchase your own copy. Notice they're not very cheap. Brand new, these things will run around $250 a piece if you want the latest, greatest version. But you can go to Amazon and find some older editions. And quite honestly, the older editions and the new editions, not much has changed between them. And we work a lot with the basics, right? And normal laboratories work with the basics as well. So unless you're doing something kind of weird and off the wall and kooky, then older editions of the Merck Index will be suitable for your purpose, and it especially is suitable for ours. So if I scroll down, here it says the Merck Index, the 14th edition. The hardcover right now I can purchase for at least $13.60. There's 40 used and new offers there for me. So if I want to buy some of these reference literature books, this is the best way to go, people. So you can have your own Merck Index whenever you need them. You will reference to them. You will find things in them. You will write things out of them. And if this is something that you want to go ahead and purchase because you're going to be taking other classes in our program, then I would highly encourage you to go ahead, fork out the $10 or $20 for this reference book, have it shipped to you so it's ready for you when you need it. The 14th edition is what we have in our laboratory, and this is, again, typically pretty much what you would need as a student or a worker for a laboratory at any point in time. Notice here, the Merck Index does have a 15th edition now. And this 15th edition, of course, is more expensive, $89 used and new. Well, why would I pay $89 for a used book if I can buy one down here for $13 and it basically has the same identical information in it? So that's the route that I would encourage you to do. The online version. There is an online version of the Merck. And here it is. So it's rsc.org/Merck Index, or you could Google simply Merck Index Online, and that will be the very first link that will show up in the database system. The Merck Index Online, though, is not a free database. You actually will have to pay for this if you want to open up and read excerpts from chemicals. We've encouraged, or we contacted our library many years ago about the option of getting the Merck Index on the internet, and it was too expensive for them. So I would say, unless you're working for a really big company that has a lot of money and they don't know what to do with it, if they want to purchase the Merck Index online, then you probably will have it. But if you're working for a smaller company that doesn't need access to the Merck as much, or they just simply don't have the funds to sink in the thousands of dollars that's needed to keep this license open at their workplace, then my advice is to buy the $13 reference book and learn how to look things up on your own. Don't rely on the databases and technology and the internet for everything, right? So the Merck Index, again, it's available online. Not for you, though, so sorry. We'll try again. There is another reference book, though, that you do have access to on the internet, and this is called the CRC Handbook. That stands for the Chemical Rubber Company. The CRC Handbook, there's different versions. One of these is for chemistry and physics. That's the one that we like. That's the one that we use most of the time. And this is also printed, and it is also online to be accessed. The CRC Handbook is in our laboratory. You're more than welcome to take a look at that reference book if needed. We do have that one for you. And it's laid out a little differently, but it's got some physical properties. It has some chemical properties. It's got some information that the Merck Index does not have. But the Chemical Rubber Company basically came together many years ago and created a reference book like Merck did in the past for their employees. Their employees needed physical properties, chemical properties, maybe different types than what the Merck did, because the Merck was pharmaceutical based and the Chemical Rubber Company, of course, was industrial based, right? So they would be looking for other things that could not be found in something like the Merck, because they're not working for pharmaceuticals, and that's not the types of products that they have at their locations. So the Handbook of Chemistry and Physics, the CRC, is a great reference book, and let me pull up the website for that. So I Googled CRC Handbook right up here at the very top, and you're going to see this link that says hbcponline.com. So I'm going to click on that link, and this gives me into their database. And the database over here to the left shows me everything that the CRC would have on the inside. I can find everything from physical constants to reactivity to analytical chemistry. How do I analyze things? There's so much information involved in the CRC textbook. I don't even really know where to start, to be quite honest. But the CRC Handbook of Chemistry and Physics, it's at currently the 99th edition. This seems to update every year or every 2 years. So depending on what year you watch this, this could be the 100th edition or the 102nd edition that might be available to you at this point. But here I can basically search just like I can for other things. So let's say I'm going to type in benzene and I'm going to search it. So yeah, here it is. There's benzene and I'm going to search. Notice it pops up search results for benzene, and it breaks it down into different sections: physical constants, properties of the elements, thermochemistry, kinetics, electrochemistry, solution chemistry, you name it. If benzene is in a table, if benzene is in a paragraph with a description, benzene is going to show up at this particular point. So I can go through and click on any one of these, and when I do, it's going to ask me for a username and password. So the online version of the CRC is not available to you directly that way. Okay? You cannot go to the CRC handbook directly and access the information. But you do have access to the online version. So what you're going to have to do is you're going to have to go to the CFCC webpage. All right? And when you do that, you're going to find the library link. Oh my God, library? We have a library? Yeah, we have a library on the campus. And they have a lot of online resources for you. Okay? So we need to start learning how to kind of navigate some of the library links and databases that's available to us as a student for free. So if I go under Student Life right here, over to the side, you're going to see this link that says Library. Now, if they've changed the website by the time you access this video, then you're probably going to find it at a different location, but the library will have their own link somewhere on our page. All right, so up here at the top, it says Search For, find books, ebooks, DVDs, and more. So I'm going to type in CRC, and I'm going to hit Search. When I do that, a couple of things will pop up. Anything with CRC in it will happen. And here it says CRC, Handbook of Chemistry and Physics, a ready reference book of chemical and physical data. That's pretty good. And here it says book, right? So that means that they have this available at the Wilmington campus. It's on reserve. And if I ever want to go in and look at that book and maybe find information out of that book for a different class, then they're going to have it for me. Now, what if I wanted access to the online version? Okay, what do I do? How do I navigate this page? Well, I'll go ahead and tell you there is a current error in the database, but by the time you access it, it might be available. But over here to the side, you'll see location, and it will say Wilmington, Online, and North. These are our library locations on campus. If you click online, if there is a website or an online link to a literature source or a book, then these books will be listed. Currently, the CRC Handbook of Physics and Chemistry should be listed in the database, but it is not. So what would happen is that you would click the link. For instance, let's say it was this one. You would click that link, and it would take you to the same website that you saw from me just a few moments ago. And that will allow you to access the database and get the information that you need from that online resource. Okay? So, again, currently, right now at this moment, when this video is getting recorded, it is not showing up in the database, but maybe by the time you need to use it, it will be there and it will be ready for you. So that's the CRC Handbook of Chemistry and Physics. And finally, our last resource that I want to cover with you is called the Bretherick's Handbook of Reactive Chemical Hazards. Okay. This text is typically not an online version. You can probably find an online version. It's not going to be free, though, and you're going to have to purchase for the excerpts that you'll find. But you can also purchase this book through somewhere like Amazon, and typically it is a hardback book that is found in a laboratory environment somewhere. It's basically a complete reference book on all of the chemical hazards that are associated with a large number of chemicals. So everything that you would need to know and how to stay away from it and what to do in case a spill happens, what to do if exposure happens, you name it, that's what's going to be found in the Bretherick's Handbook. All right. So that's all that I really want to say about this resource. You can find it. You can Google it. You can purchase it online. If you find an online resource, be ready to pay for it, because there's not, it's like the CRC and Merck. There's not going to be a readily available free database for you to utilize. Okay, so that's all that I want to say in this section. This is all about the resources that you have at your fingertips, where you can find important information of a chemical if you're working in a laboratory environment. And now you know a good assortment of different ones. The Merck, the CRC is going to be heavily used in our program, but you're also going to have things like the SDSs or MSDSs. You're going to have things like TOXNET. You're going to have things like the safety cards that you can also refer to and have trust in. That's really what this is about, right? I want a truthful, someone that's trusted, concrete information that I can kind of take to the bank. And these resources do a very good job in doing that.